Hey YouTubers, 95 Speed GTA. Today what we're going to be doing on the Caravan is finally replacing the rack and pinion steering. This is not as bad as I thought it was, and it's actually pretty simple. For those of you who don't know what a rack and pinion is basically a hydraulic system that's located underneath your car, well in most cases underneath your car on your firewall, and it's connected to two tie rod ends, which is what I have my hand on. And when you turn your steering wheel, it moves the wheels, the front wheels on your car, to the left and the right. My problem is I have a leaking rack and pinion steering, which the leak, as you can see, is right there. There's the leak. It's leaking right out of the boot, so one of the seals are bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace the whole rack and pinion system. Okay, so getting your rack out. Well, this particular rack, I noticed, and I read on the manual, there's 1, 2, 3 bolts. Also this on the steering knuckle. This is the tie rod end. You got to loosen that. I gotta take this other tire off, and on this side too. And we got some hoses to disconnect and some things to get rid of. So let's do that and take it from there. I'm going to take off the passenger side tie rod end, which is right there, and it comes from the rack, and it goes right onto the steering knuckle. And what you're going to want to do is there's going to be a bolt down here, and it's going to be an 18mm. But what you're going to want to do is get yourself a hammer or some kind of a mallet, and you're going to want to hit it right here. You're going to hit it on the boss end of the knuckle, and what you want to do is you just want to hit it right here. Give it a couple of hits. Don't hit this and don't hit that. And once it comes up, move it away from the steering knuckle and move on to the next side. So just like I said, I hit it here a couple of times, and it won't pop out, but it'll come loose enough where you could just grab it, and it'll come right out. And you stick that off to the side. Don't take these. You're gonna have to, if these are in good condition, the tie rod ends, you're gonna want to reuse them. But if you got some extra money, I would just buy new ones. And these have very little play in them, so I'm gonna keep them. So let's do the other side. Okay, and same on the other side. You hit it right here, and this I had to give a couple extra hard hits. Don't be afraid to get it on this side, and if you got to hit around here, it's fine. Just don't hit this stuff. This stuff is pretty delicate. This side's a little, not really that bad. It's not dangerously loose. You know, like I can wiggle it, but I got to wiggle it with force. So if you ever seen new ones, that's normal. So so the rack is disconnected from the steering knuckle, or whatever they call this thing. I'm sorry, sometimes I forget terms, but it's removed. And what I'm going to do is take your nuts and just place them back on here so you don't lose them. Because remember, I'm reusing these tie rods, so you know you want to keep all your parts and everything. So, okay, rack is removed from the steering knuckles. So let's go to the next step and now remove the rack from the steering column. To do this, you're going to have to pull back your carpet on this particular car, because the removing it is right there. Well, hold on, let me change that. Removing the rack from the steering column is done right there in that spot. So what you want to do is, if you have the power pedals, which I don't unfortunately, move them all the way up away from the carpet, and take the carpet that's up here and just pull it back. You don't have to take this out or undo anything. Just take your carpet out and pull the carpet back. Okay, since your carpet is moved back, what we could do is move on to the next thing. This here is like an isolator pad. It's just pretty much a rubber boot that goes over the part that you need to get to. And I don't know if you guys could see this, but I'm going to try to do this the best way I can. But there's 1, 2, and 3. I don't know if there's a 4th one up here. I can't see it. I don't think so. Holding this down. So what you want to do is, oh, this is actually metal or plastic, but what you want to do is you want to remove this. Okay, now for any of you that have got the directions on how to do this, I'm going to show you the magical tool you need to get the roller pin out. Chrysler manual says that you need a special roller pin tool to get the roller pin that we've been going after out. And I'm going to tell you right now, all you need is a nice Phillips head screwdriver. Hopefully you guys are lucky and not like me, and you have a longer one than this. Not as ugly looking, but basically you just stick the tool in, and you get a mallet just like this, and you just give it a couple of taps, and you take it out, and you'll see that the roller pin, well, you guys can't see it because it's getting a little dark out, but the roller pin is going in and in and in, and it's going to come out the other side. And in the instructions it says to remove the intermediate shaft, which is up there, but I'm going to try to not do that, and I'm going to see what happens when I drop the rack down and see if it'll come down right off this without any problems. So basically, going back to the collar, don't be afraid to that little collar that we took off before, that plastic thing that I was showing you. Once you take the 3 screws out, don't be afraid to give it a good pull, because I had to give mine a good pull to get it off. It's nothing too drastic, but you know, if it's not going to come off with a little tug, don't be afraid. Maybe if you want to stick a flathead screwdriver underneath the lip part and give it a pull, it'll be fine. But it's sticking up on my brake pedal. It's not moving, so it's not a big deal. Some of you out there, you may have a problem with getting your steering wheel to lock. Me, I'm having a problem doing that. So I gotta constantly monitor my steering wheel and make sure it stays in this position, because this is the straight ahead position. This is very important that you keep the steering wheel like this, because if you don't, and it actually and it slips behind or something like that, and you put everything back together, you could screw up your what do you call it? There's a mechanism inside here, and I just lost it. But anyway, I'll edit it. You can mess up your what the fuck is it called? I don't know what it's called, but there's something you can mess up in here if the steering wheel is not straight. So you don't want to do that. So make sure it stays this way. And well, let's get that roller pin out. Here's that badass roller pin I was talking to you about. I use a flathead, not a flathead, but use a Phillips head screwdriver. Get it right in there and just push it through with the mallet. And you don't need that special tool that they speak of. So now that I got the roller pin out and I could separate the steering column from the rack, I got to get under the car and start disconnecting stuff. First line of business is, well, before you want to get underneath a car, especially a car that's about 4,000 pounds and you have no front wheels on it, you want to use jack stands in a particular spot so they're not in your way while you're working. And once you pull off your 2 front wheels, what you want to do is take them and put them right next to the jack stands. So worst case scenario, if anything does happen, which I'm pretty sure it won't, and the car falls, it's going to fall on the wheels and not fall and kill you. Also, anytime you lift up a car from the front, always put your emergency brake on after you lift up the car. It's just for added safety. So here's our new rack and pinion. And basically this is what we disconnected. That roll pin and, you know, all that other happy stuff. Here's the inlet and outlet lines. So this is what you have to get to next. So our next line of business is to get underneath the car. We have to move a emissions box, which I'll show you, and I showed you, but I'll show you again. And once we remove the box, we remove the lines, and then after we remove those 2 lines, what we're going to do is we're going to have 1, 2, 3 bolts, and our old rack should slide right out. On the 01 to 03 Caravans, doing a rack and pinion is not as bad as people say. Doing a power steering pump, though, well, that's totally a different story. You do have to take out the charcoal canister to get, which was right here, to get to the rack lines, which were right in the spot where my camera is. Now, if you look at the factory instructions, they tell you to take the rack, once you get the rack, you know, ready to be moved out, to push it all the way towards the passenger side and remove this, which is the tie rod end, and push the outer tie rod end underneath through this. This is like a brace for the cross member, and it should go through. And that's not a problem, and that's you know, the proper way to do it. But with this project, I can honestly say there really is no proper way to do this, because there's quite a few ways you could do it. One, if I were to do this all over again, I'll wait for the car to pass. If I had to do this all over again, I would knock out the ball joints, separate it from all this, and just drop the suspension cradle, because I think I would have been done with this job a lot sooner than screwing around with all this crap that the manual tells you to do, with taking this out, taking that out. So for anybody that's doing a job on an 01 to 07 Dodge Caravan in Chrysler Town & Country, rack and pinion, drop the cradle. I'm telling you, it's gonna be a lot easier to drop the cradle than to go through all this crap. But if you don't want to drop the cradle and you don't feel comfortable, this is what you could do. When it's time to get to the back lines, if you got really thin hands, you can get to the back of the rack and get those two lines. The rack is disconnected, so this is not its official position. So I just want to point that out to you right now. But this is what I did to get more room. What I did was I loosened up the cradle bolts, which there's one right here, there's one in the back, and another two on the same side, just on the passenger side. What I did was I loosened them up, and I got about 1 inch to 2 inches more of room, and I took my 18mm open-end wrench, and I was able to take the lines off the rack. Next thing I wanted to show you is this pain in the ass thing. This is like a safety brace or something, and this is what you're supposed to put the rack through. Well, I have a problem, and the problem is my outer tie rod ends are frozen on, and I can't figure out how to get them off, and I don't want to replace them because they're still in good, you know, they're still in good shape. So instead of mangling the rack and taking a hacksaw and cutting it off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fully remove the rack with the tie rod ends on, and I'm going to bring the entire assembly to my friend's shop, and he'll heat it up with a gun and loosen it up, and then I can put it on the new rack. So this is what I'm going to do. I have this part on here, so this is the problem. Getting this rack out is not going to happen unless you do this. There's a lot of bolts, but I unbolted this this safety brace or whatever the hell it is. It's a nuisance, that's what it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the instructions, and I'm going to push the rack all the way to the passenger side. And when it comes to dipping this down, the whole entire rack is just going to come out in one shot with no problems. Well, the bullshit out of the way. Should have did this before I hit record. Oh well. Alright, make sure that when you're under your car, it's under jack stands. Do not ever get underneath a car in this position with the front wheels off when it's just held up by a jack. Because the jack that I have don't hold up for nothing. Make sure that your tie rod ends are taken off. Alright, here we go. Lift it up. Remove it. It's good to have a second person to help you out, but if you don't, you can manage it on your own. Not a big deal. Alright, now, this is where we slide it out. Tilt it. Alright, now I'm going to come up. And there, YouTubers, is your old rack and pinion. Now I'll bring it to my friend's shop and have him take the tie rod ends off for me. Remember that on the left hand side, driver's side, is a really long bolt like this. That's the only one that's this size for the rack. The other two are pretty much identical to the bolts that hold up this safety thing that's right above my head. So I'm not fully putting everything on. I'm just snugging everything right now. And check this bad boy out, huh? Not bad, not bad. Got it, you know, it's right in the middle of the car, but not that bad. So, I'm gonna finish up everything. Get her done. Thanks, guys. YouTubers 95 Speed GTA. If you have any other questions about the 01 to 07 Dodge Caravan, send me a message. Take care.